This is the Q1 exam review for applied math. I will be doing the evens only. Okay, so for the first one, make sure we're reading the directions. It says simplify. That means we are not solving for anything. We're just simplifying. So remember, you need to do what's in the parentheses first. Obviously, we can't do anything there, but we can distribute. So I'm going to distribute that, and I'm going to get negative 18t, and that's going to be plus 42, and then plus 2. And then I'll have negative 18t, and we'll combine that, and be plus 44. And that's your final answer. So when you see simplify, you're not solving anything because there's no equals sign. You are just simplifying it. Now when we go down to number 4, it says solve for the expression or for the equation. For 7y plus 5 equals 3y minus 31. It doesn't matter which side you go to, but you need to get the ones that are common terms to one side, and you need to get the other common terms to the other side. So I'm going to put my 3y over here. So I do that by minusing 3y on each side. So it's going to give me 4y plus 5 is equal to negative 31. I want to get rid of this 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add negative 5 or just minus 5 on each side. And then that will cancel out, and that will give me 4y is equal to negative 36. Now I want to get y by itself, so I divide by 4. I divide by 4, and y is going to be equal to a negative 9. And you can check that by plugging it right back in. Okay, if you want to check your answers, just take y and plug it in for each y, and then solve for it. All right, so this one says we're solving each equality if possible. If the inequality has no solution, write no solution. If the solutions are all real numbers or infinite many solutions, write all real numbers. So there's 3 things you could do. You could solve for it. There also could be a situation where it doesn't make sense, and that would be a no solution. And then also another situation where it'd be all possible real numbers. So for number 6 here, just like the other ones, we want to combine like terms and simplify, and then we're going to try to solve for one of the variables. So I see on my right side that there's a negative 6f and there's an 8f. So I want to combine those two. So I'm going to do that, and what I do is I get 2f plus 4 is greater than or equal to, so that's going to leave me with 2f plus 36. All right, so now if I want to get the f's to one side, I'm going to have to minus 2f minus 2f. What that does is that gets rid of this, and that gets rid of this. And what you're left over with is 4 is greater than or equal to a positive 36. Now what you need to ask yourself is, does that make sense? No, that doesn't make sense. 4 is not greater than 36. 4 is not equal to 36. So it would be no solution. All right, so now let's go to the next one. Remember, we're going to have to do some things first. We're going to just distribute. And then on the left side, we're going to have to combine some like terms. Okay? So if I combine the like terms on the left side, that'll be 12t minus 1t. So it'll be 11t plus 2 is less than or equal to 3t minus 6. So again, all I did was distribute and combine like terms. Remember, and then I want to get the t's to one side and the numbers to the other side. Then solve for t. So I'm going to minus 3t minus 3t. That's going to give me 8t plus 2 is less than or equal to negative 6. I'm going to minus 2 on each side. takes care of that. So I have then 8t is less than or equal to negative 8. I'm going to divide each side by 8. And so I'm going to have t is less than or equal to negative 1. Now, keep in mind that if you were to if you divide by a negative number, that's when this sign flips, okay? So only when you divide by a negative number. As you can see, I divided by a positive 8, but if this was, say, a negative 8, that means it would flip. But it didn't. That's not what we're talking about. Just want to keep you guys informed. And so our answer would be t is less than or equal to negative 1. Solve each proportion. All right, when you see proportions, when you see this with the equal sign right here, that's telling you to just cross multiply. So what I'm going to do is, got to go back to my blue. I'm just going to cross multiply. So I'll have 4k is equal to 12. Oh, I gotta get my calculator out. No, 15. So that's going to be 4k is going to be equal to 15. All I do is divide by 4 on each side, and I get k is equal to 15 over 4. Same thing with this, except for remember I got to keep my parentheses here. So what I'll end up with when I cross multiply that, it'll be a negative 4, 7x minus 1 is equal to 6, negative x plus 8. I'm going to cross multiply that. So now I'm going to have to distribute. We get negative 28x, and then negative 4 times negative 1 is going to be plus 4. It's going to be equal to negative 6x, and then plus 48. What's up, man? Yeah. If we keep going from there, I'm going to get the x's to one side. I'm going to add 6x, add 6x. That's going to give me negative 22x plus 4 is equal to 48. I'm going to minus 4 on each side. So negative 22x is going to be equal to 48 minus 4 is 44. Then I'm going to divide each side by negative 22. And x is going to be negative 2. All right, for this next section, I got a few notes here that are important, so I'm just going to divide this. All right, when you're converting, you put the number what's given over 1, then you put the same label on the bottom on the other side, and then you multiply across. So you're not cross multiplying, you're multiplying across, so from left to right. So let me show you what I mean. I have, what's given to me is 18 ounces, right? And they want me to put that into pounds. So I'm going to take this 18 ounces and I'm going to put it over 1. We don't know how many pounds that is right now, but on the other side, in step number 2, put the same label on the bottom. I'm going to put this same label ounces on the bottom here. Okay? And then I'm going to use what's given to me, 16 ounces and 1 pound. So 1 pound is 16 ounces. And then I'm multiplying across, which is from left to right. So it's going to be 18 times 1. So it's going to be 18. And then 1 times 16 is 16. And what happens is the ounces cross off because they're on the top, or they're reciprocal of each other. And what I'm left with is 18/16 pounds. Now we can reduce that, right? So I can reduce that to, if they could both be divided by 2. So I can reduce that to 9/8 pounds. All right, let's keep moving. All right, solve each absolute value equation. So remember, when you have absolute value, you must have 2 equations. You're going to solve for this and then set it equal to the positive and then equal to the negative. And you'll have 2 equations, which will then give you 2 answers. So for this question, number 16, I have to get what's in the absolute value bars all by itself. So I need to divide or get rid of that 6. I do that by dividing. But first, I gotta add or subtract minus 4. So I'm gonna subtract 4 on each side, and let's just say I did that first step a little too early. So let's just say I started with subtracting 4 on each side. I'm gonna get 6 times the absolute value of 5 minus m. Is going to be equal to -1. Then I have to get rid of this 6 on this side, so I'm going to divide the whole thing by 6, divide the whole thing by 6, and I'm going to get 5 minus m is equal to -1/6. Now we have to stop here, and I have to write no solution. Why? Because anything in absolute value right here, anything that's in the absolute value bars has to be positive. It cannot end up being negative, which is what we got right here, because that doesn't make sense. So whether it's -5 or just 5, both of these are 5 spots away from 0, so it's a positive 5. Now, if I wanted to do one for you here, just to show you guys real quick, this one's set up for you already. What you would need to do is you need to do 2 equations. And that would be 11z minus 4 equals 23. And then 11z minus 4 equals a negative 23. Then you would solve for z in each, and you would get 2 answers. All right, keep moving on. 18, how tired are you throughout the day? Make sure you label the variables. So the variables I see are tired and then throughout the day. So I could probably think about 2 variables, maybe like my energy level or just energy, and then time, because time always goes on the x-axis. All right, so when I think about it, if my energy is in an all-time low down here, and this is like saying an all-time high, when I wake up, I probably have some energy, not too much, but some. And let's just say that maybe it goes up throughout the day, but then it's going to go down, and I'm going to get tired. So it'd probably be something like that. Now, one could argue that maybe when you wake up in the morning and you're super chipper, because some people are morning people, they start off up here and their energy levels decrease, so it's something like that. Both of those would be acceptable. Just make sure you put in your variables. We'll go on to functions. So 20. If you're given a table like this, and it asks, is it a function? You look at the x's. Do any of those repeat? If none of them repeat, then yes, it is a function, and you can keep going. Then you want to find your slope. Now, you can do this in two ways. Just consider that these are all points, right? This is your first coordinate, this is your second coordinate. And then you just subtract. But you could also just find the pattern that's happening. So what's in the change in y's over the change in x's? So what happens when I go from 4 to 3? 4 to 3 is minus 1. 3 to 2 is minus 1. 2 to 1 is minus 1. And then, so that'd be my negative. So my slope, which is m, is equal to negative 1 over 0 to 1 is 1. 1 to 2 is 2. 2 to 3 is 3. And then keep this in mind. If I have a negative 1 over 1, that just equals negative 1. So my slope in this one is just negative 1. That's it. But again, you could plug these numbers into the slope equation that we have, x y or y1 minus y2 or y2 minus y1 over x1 2 minus x1, and you get the same answer. All right. So then after we found the slope, we need to plug in a coordinate and the slope to find b, because this is our equation here. That's our equation. So I'm going to take just the very first point, or the very first set of coordinates, and that's going to be 0, 4. So if I have 0, 4, and I have my m, this is going to be an x, this is going to be a y, so I'm just going to plug it in. I'm going to plug my x in right there, plug my y in right there, and I'm going to plug my m in right there, and that's going to be, all that's left over is b. So let's do that and figure out what b is. So my y is 4. That's going to be equal to my m is negative 1. I'm going to multiply that by my x, which is 0, and then plus b. 1 times 0 is 0. That's going to be 4 is equal to 0 plus b. And then this is just going to cancel just because it's 0. If it was, say, a negative 1, you would have to add 1 to each side. If it was a 1, you'd have to minus 1 on each side. But I'm left with b is equal to 4, and you can write it, just flip it over. And then I always keep track of my 2 right here, because then once I have my b, once I have my m, these two are crucial to writing an equation, slope-intercept form. I can now write my final answer. So make sure you're keeping your work, but I just want to show you this. My very final answer is going to be y is equal to, I'm going to put my m in there, negative 1, x, and then a positive 4, which would be my b. And that's my final answer. All right, for 22, I need to use my flow chart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the pattern in the y's. So negative 1 to 0 is minus 1. 0 to 1. Oh, sorry, that's not minus 1. Negative 1, negative 1 to 0 is 1. 0 to 1 is 1. 1 to 32, uh-oh, what happened? So we got to use our flow chart. So the slopes are not the same. And then we go and it asks, are the y's being multiplied by the same number? So this one's, what I just did before was adding. Are these now being multiplied by the same number? So negative 1 times something, which would be 0, would get me to 0. 0 times something would get me to 1. That's not going to work out either. So then it asks me if it's going to be, it's going to tell me actually that it's going to be y is equal to either x squared, x cubed or x to the fourth. So now I just got to find out which one it is. And by the way, I forgot to do this, but yes, it is a function because none of the x's repeat. So let's just start plugging in the first one. So does -1 equal -1 squared? That would be -1 is equal to 1. That doesn't make sense. Okay? So it's not going to be, and it cannot be, x squared. So now we go on to x cubed. Okay? Let's take a look at x cubed. If I change this to x cubed, is -1 equal to -1 times -1 times -1? Yes, -1 is equal to -1. That's true. But let's just make sure we're right. We know if we multiply the zeros, it'll be the same. We know if we multiply the ones, it'll be the same. So let's just make sure in this one. So is 32 equal to 2 to the third? So that's 2 times 2 times 2. So 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Is 32 equal to 8? No. So we know that it's not going to be x to the 3. Trying this one more time. Let's see if it's x to the fourth. So let's see if -1 is equal to, not -1. It shouldn't be -1. We're on our, this one right here. Is 32 going to be equal to 2 to the fourth? Positive 2 to the fourth. So that would be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. Times 2 is 8. Times 2 is 16. So 2 to the fourth power would not work either. From there, I have to keep going. Would x to the fifth work? That'd be 32 is equal to 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. So is 32 equal to 32? Yep. So let's just, one last time. We just got to make sure it fits for this one too. So as of right now, our answer is going to be x to the fifth. But let's take a quick look and make sure, because we always got to check our work. So what we would do is, we would try it on that last one. So it's 243 equal to 3 to the fifth power. And that would be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. You can just do that in the calculator. And that would be 243. It's equal to 243. So your answer, your final answer, would be y equals x to the fifth. 24, super easy. Domains are just your x's. Ranges are just the range is just your y's. Just remember that you got to put them in order from least to greatest. So if my domains are my x's, that's going to be that one, that one, that one, and that one. Looks like they're already in order. So it's going to be -3, -1, 2, and 7. I'm going to do the same thing for my ranges. -1, 6, 7, 12. Looks like they're also from smallest to greatest. So 1, -1, 6, 7, 12. This should be the easiest one on the entire test. Now, if I have find the range, which is y, of each function for the given domain, that means that all of these right here are the x's. Okay, so you got to plug in each one of these x's to find each y. So for the first one, I'm going to plug in -3. So y is equal to -2 times -3 plus 7. And I'm going to do that math, and then I'm going to realize that it's going to be 6 plus 7, and 6 plus 7 is 13. Then I have to do it for 2. Y is equal to -2 times 2 plus 7. So it's going to be -4 plus 7 is equal to 3. Y is equal to 4, -2 times 4 plus 7 is equal to, that would be a -8 plus 7, which would be a -1. And then I'm going to go ahead and keep doing this. It's going to be y is equal to -2 times 6 plus 7. -2 times 6 is -12, so y is going to be equal to -5. And the last one, y is equal to -2 times 8 plus 7, so y is going to be -16 plus 7 is going to be equal to -9. Now my final answer, remember, you got to put them in the order from smallest to greatest. So that's going to be -9, -5, -1, 3, 13. All right, to find slope, we have our equation, and that is right here. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and we literally just plug those in. So that's going to be 12 minus a -1 over 4 minus 6. 2 negatives is going to be turn it into positive, so it's going to be 13. 4 minus 6 is a -2, so that's going to turn the whole thing negative. -2. And there's your answer. All right, so what we need to do for number, we're 28, so we're doing number 30. We just need to write an equation. Now, it has to go through 7, -3, and m equals 4. So don't overthink it. Just use the coordinate that we have and the slope, because it gives us the slope, to find b. So this is your x, this is your y. You can just use y equals mx plus b to find out what b is, right? I've always said, make sure you find your m, make sure you find your b. That's how you solve these problems. So our x in this one is going to be 17. Our m in this one, here, I'll just do this. So our y is going to be -3 is equal to our slope, which is our m, and that's 4, times our x, which is 17, plus b. So we need to do 4 times 17, 4 times 17, and that's going to give you 40 plus 28, which should be 68 if I'm correct. Off the top of my head, -3 is equal to 68 plus b. I'm going to minus 68 on each side. I'm going to get b is equal to 72. Well, let me just check my work here on my calculator. I'm going to do 17 times 4 is equal to 68, and then obviously with the -3. So then b is going to be equal to 72, We already know what our m is. That's going to be equal to 4. So now, you don't want to erase this, but I have to just because of space. We are just going to write the equation y is equal to, I'm going to plug my 4 in, and then I'm just going to add my b. And that's it, right there. All right, writing the following equation in slope-intercept form. Same thing. Here's the key word, parallel. Okay? So if it's parallel to this equation, the first thing I do is I look at the slope. That's all I'm worried about. Just looking at the slope. The slope in this equation is equal to -3. I still need to find my b. Once I find my slope, I don't care anymore about this right here. Because it says it's parallel, the slope doesn't change, so I just find the slope of that line, and I'm done with it. So I don't need any of this anymore. So, just like this problem right up here, I have an m, I have an x, I have a y. I'm going to plug that into y equals mx plus b. It's going to be 7 is equal to -3 times -2 plus b. And I'm going to solve for b. So it's going to give me 6. I'm going to minus 6 on each side, and I'm going to get 1 is equal to b. So now I have my m, I have my b. I'm just going to plug that back into y equals mx plus b, so y is equal to -3x plus 1. Now keep in mind, if this right here said perpendicular, you need to do the opposite reciprocal. Okay, so perpendicular is opposite reciprocal. I'm sorry, I don't have enough space to write that out. But what that means is, if the slope in this equation, for example, if this problem, we found out that we need to have it perpendicular to that equation, right? Let's say this was perpendicular. We would still just look at what the slope is, okay? But the thing that I have to do is I have to make it an opposite reciprocal. So if the slope of this line is equal to -3, I need, for my perpendicular line, do the opposite reciprocal. So the opposite of -3 is 3, right? And then the reciprocal, if you have 3, any number is always over 1. So a reciprocal is just flipping that. So it went from a -3 to a positive 1/3. Then you just use that, and then your x and your y, plug it in, and you would have your b. Put those two in the equation, and you're done. All right, word problem. All right, online music club charges $6.35 for the first music download and $3.50 for each additional download per month. Write a rule, which means an equation, for describing the total monthly fees as F. So we know that it's going to be F equals, and the downloads D. What are the fees for 20 downloads a month? So what we need to do is it's going to be $3.50, right? $3.50 per download, and then the first one is $6.35. So that's our equation. And then what is it for 20 downloads? We got to plug 20 in. However, the thing is, it says for the first one is $6.35. So if the first one's $6.35, I don't have 20 of them left over. I have 19. So I'm going to plug 19 in for D. So I would just plug in 3.50 times 19, and then I would add 6.35, and I would get $72.85. All right, keep moving along. All right, here's a graphing one. I got to make an XY chart right away. These are going to be months because time's on the x-axis, and this is going to be cost. Now remember, this is a real life situation, right? So I'm going to use the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and I'm just going to plug these into here. If this was just a regular generic equation like this one right here, that doesn't talk about anything in real life, I would use -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. Okay? So plug that in. So the first one, for the first month, I plug 0 in and I get 35. Then I plug the second one and I get 51. The third one in, it's gonna be 67. And then so you should be able to notice a pattern here. So it looks like I'm going up by 16. Hold on, let me see. 50. Yeah. So 35 plus 16 plus 16. So each time I'm going up 16. This is plus 16 plus 16. You could just plug all of them in if you wanted to, but sometimes you like to just hit plus 16 and it's faster. So this one's 83. And then plus 16, 99, 115. So I have all my points here. And what I have to do is I need to take for my x, I know that this is going to be, I have to use all of this here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up with the number of lines. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. And my biggest number is 5. So I'm going to take so let's just do 2. So every 2 line is 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Remember, this is the 0, 0 right here. Biggest number here is 115. I do 115, I divide that by the number of lines, which is 12. I get 9.58, so I'm going to round that up to 10. Round up, do not round down. Each line is going to be 10, so this I like to do every other line just to keep it a little bit more organized, easier to read. So this would be 20, 40, 60, 80, not 110, 100, and then 120. That's my cost. And then I'm just going to graph these points. So it'd be, let's see, 0 about 35 is right about there. 150. 1 is about there. 267. Nope, that's not it. About there. 3. 83. 499. And then 5. 115. So I'm going to go pretty much all the way up. So make sure you have got some nice points. It's kind of hard to draw with this Apple Pencil. Or actually make little small points, but bear with me. So then you got to say, is this going to be continuous or discrete? So if, for example, can you have half a month, right? So you might be thinking, yes, it can be continuous because look at the cost, but it's asking depending on the number of whole months. So it's going to be discrete because it's whole months. Or you could also write can't have half a month. All right, I think this is our last one, number 36. So all we need to do is, like I said, since this is just a regular generic equation, what I'm going to do is just plug these in. So remember, with the negative numbers, and this is cubed, it's -2 times -2 times -2. So we would just plug the x's in and then add 2, and then that would give us our y. So -2 times -2 is 4, times -2 would be -8, plus 2 is -6. -1 times -1 is 1, times -1 is -1, plus 2 is 1. This one, 0 to the third power is 0, plus 2 would be 2. 1 to the third power plus 2 would be 3. And then 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, so that'd be 10. So I have my points there. It's just -2, -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's my point right there. And then I would do -1, -1. Then I would do 0, 1, 2. Then I would do 1, 1, 2, 3. And then I would do 1, 2, and go up. And then I would draw this line in here with my arrows. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the end. Here's my signature. Hold on to it. It's gonna be worth a lot of money someday. Email me if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will see you next week. Have a good one.